All right, okay, I'll tell you what. Instead of covering this match, I've got one more story about my granddad, right? Okay, so my granddad, with the best will in the world, is a loon. And I mean that in a very endearing way, that he is a loon. He is a strange man. I just have never, in my 33 years, nearly 33 years on this planet, been able to understand him. One day, because I used to live with him, one day I came downstairs into the kitchen and he was facing out the back window, so with his back to me as I came into the kitchen. And I thought, in spite of my better judgment, that I would engage him in conversation. I said to him, "Hey, what you doing there?" As I walked up beside him, and he goes, "Do you see out there, do you?" Pointing out the window. I said, "Yeah." He says, "You don't see many magpies out there, do you?" I said, "No, I don't usually see magpies out our back garden." Like, why? Why? Like, he goes, "Do you know why you don't?" I said, "Well, probably because there are never magpies out there, but why do you think there are no magpies out there?" And he said, "Do you see out there?" And I said, "Yeah, the table." He said, "Yeah. And do you see on top of the table?" I said, "Yeah, there's a little pile of something." And he goes, "Yeah, that's why." So do you know what he'd done? Right? He decided in his head that magpies were stealing his apples off his tree. So he got a bunch of porridge oats.
Okay.
And
not too bad.
And crushed up expired sleeping pills into them to drug the birds.
Well, now we've established the origin story for why it's called K-Town.
Yeah. Now, later on, I said, I better tell my granny this, because the man...
Sorry, how old were you at this point?
So I was about 15 or 16.
So you were old enough to know what a sleeping tablet would do.
And he would have been, like, if not in his 70s, nearly in his 70s. Like, he was definitely past retirement age.
Old enough to know better.
Oh, by far. Which is a running theme of stories I tell about him. And I said I'd tell my granny, because the man was clearly unhinged and on this particular one, because he gets these notions into his head and doesn't let them go for a while. And I said, well, I can't be on magpie watch 24/7 around here. I've got things to do. At the age of 16, I don't know what the fuck things to do meant. But I said...
You'd rather watch.
I said, did Grandad tell you about the magpies? Yes, he told me about the magpies. I said, and what do we think of that? And she said, look, sleeping pills were the compromise. I said, excuse me? She goes, yes, originally he was going to crush glass and put it in porridge oats. And she goes, there was also a few minutes where he said he was going to drive up the north and get fireworks to shoot at the birds.
I am just glad your granddad didn't have a pellet gun.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. And the thing is, Lee, as you know, as we progress through life, and you may meet friends of mine who have met my grandfather, they will tell you that none of these stories resemble an exaggeration whatsoever.
So I want to know, did the magpies come back?
No, but once again, Lee, I must point out they weren't there in the first place.
So there was never any magpies, is what you're telling me.
In a way, he succeeded, because the magpie population, specifically in the back garden of our house in Nace, remained at 0. So, as a deterrent, I cannot argue its effectiveness. I would just argue its necessity in the first place.
So where is apples going?
No, I just think it was a bad year for apples, and there weren't that many. To be honest,
the neighbour wasn't, having vast amounts of apple pie.
And the thing is, it's not like we were dependent on the apple tree for survival or anything like that. He didn't really eat that many of them, but it was just the principle of the thing. So he thought there was some vast magpie conspiracy to fuck him out of his apples that year.
I'm just wondering how many, was he harvesting the apples and counting and going, we're 5 short this year?
look, I don't try and gaze into the face of madness. I just try to roll with the punches. And to this day, if I ever brought it up, he'd be like, well, they never took my apples again. I was like, I don't think they took your apples before, but fair enough. It's one of those things where, with kind of an older generation of men, sometimes you just kind of nod and let them think they've won. And they go happily about life.
I'm just fascinated by if he feels he won this war.
Yeah. Some other day on the podcast, I'll tell you about when I was in hospital and he came in slagging off the nearly dead elderly men in the beds around me. Like he was doing 5 minutes at the fucking Improv.